Welcome back to Banging the Can, the Houston sports show that does not apologize for championship rings and tings, presented by Bolin Media. I am your host, Ross Bolin, and baseball season is back. We are 18 games into the Astros season, and wouldn't you know it, our fickle fans are slamming on the panic button for the fourth consecutive season. Let's discuss. The Astros sit at an unimpressive 8 wins and 10 losses, having only won back-to-back games twice. And I don't think anyone, from the clubhouse to the owner's suite to the bleachers to the Twitter cheap seats, should be super stoked on the results so far. That being said, last year when we won the World Series, if you recall, we started 9-9 through the same number of games, okay? So if you struggle with math, like I do, that's one more win than we have so far this year. And last year, we had a healthier roster, most importantly, including our leadoff hitter and team tone setter, Jose Altuve. Furthermore, through 13 games, the Astros have been 6-7 every single season for the last 4 years. So generally speaking, we have started slow and remained relatively unimpressive at the beginning of the bulk of the seasons in the most successful era in Astros history. And I understand we all need something to talk about and bitch and moan about and complain about and let our inner anger and rage out on. I get that. I'm a human being too. I'm a sports fan. I know how this goes. Okay? That's a big part of this. But for those of us who are choosing to live in a peaceful and self-aware reality, it is far too early, way too soon, to be hitting the fucking panic button, which is happening a lot. And I feel like a broken record. This is every season. We've been doing this every year. It's ridiculous. Too much. It's too much. We are the defending champions. Please try to maintain some semblance of calm as the team works to find its new feel. All right, we're looking at a lot of new faces here. There's a lot of change since last season on the roster and in the game itself, right? We let Verlander go. We signed a new first baseman and said goodbye to Yuli Gurriel. We've got a new second baseman filling in for an injured Jose Altuve who broke his thumb in the World Baseball Classic. The team having a slow start is not exactly the most shocking thing that has ever occurred in sports, now is it? Nor is it alarming, all things considered. All right, we are 2 wins from 500 and 3.5 games back from the first place spot in the division with, checks notes, the Angels and Rangers in front of us. The Angels and Rangers. So if you're sitting in a spot where you feel the Angels and Rangers are longer-term threats, I just don't know how to level with you. Like, you and I cannot have a conversation. Because that's just, come on, pull yourselves together. Or don't. I don't really give a shit. But the fact is, if you're one of the psychos already sounding the alarm and attempting to persuade Dusty Baker to make lineup changes via social media, you're being a silly little goose. And you need to at least admit that so we can all laugh together instead of just at you. Sit down, shut up, and enjoy the ride. This is what we've been waiting for the entire offseason. And now we're here, and it's just incessant negativity. And maybe that's just a result of the times we live in, where it feels like that's the case on every single subject that there is to talk about. But my God, is it grating. If we're still in third in the division, like this time next month, like midway through May, you can start to get a little worried about things and express that online without seeming like a muckraking clown boy. But for now, you kind of look like a jackass. So just chill out. All right, let's talk about how the season has gone so far. First of all, I have many things to say about opening day. If you need someone to blame for the slow start that is in no way worthy of panic, I blame Mark Wahlberg. What the shit was Marky Mark doing as our play ball caller for Game 1? Like many of you, I learned that he is apparently very close with our third baseman, Alex Bregman, whom he called his favorite Yankee killer, but frankly, Wahlberg is 51 years old. Bregman is 29. So they can't be that close, right? Not close enough to warrant him being our play ball call on opening day after we just won the World Series. I also don't appreciate the Yankees being mentioned before our first game of the season over the loudspeaker in our stadium for any reason. Yankee killer or not, don't bring your Boston bullshit into our stadium and spew bad juju all over the place, Mark. Aspire to be better. He didn't even say play ball, by the way. He said, Houston, let's play some baseball. And that's not the call. Goofy ass. Fortunately, we had Megan the Stallion throwing out the first pitch, a native Houstonian, to offset the weird Boston vibes we got from Mark. Unfortunately, Megan has watched so few baseball games in her life that she thought she was pitching to second base, awkwardly facing the entirely wrong direction for roughly a minute before eventually facing home. Fortunately, this gave us a much longer view of Megan's Stallion, but it was disheartening to go from a lifelong Boston Red Sox fan doing the play ball incorrectly and mentioning the Yankees to a native Houstonian throwing out the first pitch who has apparently seen so few baseball games that she doesn't know which way the pitcher faces and throws the ball. And all of that weirdness resulted in our first opening day loss in like a decade. I think it was literally 10 in a row before that. So if you needed something to complain about, if you wanted something to complain about, that would have been it. I've been complaining about it every day since, and it's been satisfactory to fill that needing to let out some negativity void in my life. Not so much the record, not so much the way the team is played, but the entirely unnecessary opening day setup. That was bizarre. So moving on, we lost opening night to the White Sox, giving up 2 runs in the 9th inning with closer Ryan Presley off to a bumpy start, right? Then we won the next 2, and then lost the series closer to sit at 2-2 after the White Sox visit. So we moved on to the Detroit Tigers, where we dropped the first 2 games, making it 3 losses in a row before winning the last game of that trio 8-2, which felt like maybe things were starting to turn around because the offense had kind of woken up. Then we dropped the first 2 games to the Minnesota Twins, and people started to panic. But we closed out that trio against the Twins with a win, then won the opener against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And it's basically been loss, win, loss, win, loss, win ever since. The Rangers series being by far the most disappointing of the season so far, as you never want to drop a series to the team from Arlington, especially not losing the last game 9-1. That fucking sucked. And then to get us to the present, we've split the most recent 2 games with the Toronto Blue Jays, and we close out that series tonight with the 0-2 Luis Garcia on the mound. Garcia has a 7.71 ERA through 2 games and has definitely been one of the biggest concerns as far as pitching goes so far. So let's talk about bright spots and dark spots through 18 games. And I'll start with dark spots since we are already there with Luis and with the pitching, all right? The pitching has felt like a problem, frankly, mostly because it was such an obvious strong suit throughout the closing stretch of the regular season and into the postseason of last year's championship run. Pitching was the thing that we knew we could always count on with our most recent team that won the fucking World Series. But, as Michael Schwab pointed out on Twitter, through 17 games, things had not been all that different than they were in 2022. In 2022, through 17 games, our team ERA was 3.59. This year, it was 3.46. It actually improved a little bit. In 2022, through 17 games, our starters' ERA was 4.06. This year, it was 3.22. Things had improved a little bit. In 2022, through 17 games, our bullpen ERA was 3.0. This year, 3.84. So that one got a little bit worse. But like altogether, no, the pitching hasn't been great, but if history is any indication, there's plenty of time for the starters and bullpen to get their shit together, and definitely no real need to freak out yet. And when you factor in the pitch clock, the rule changes, which have obviously massive impact on the speed of the game and obviously impacts pitchers and their pace and their feel for the game in a pretty drastic way. I'm not that worried about the pitching. I'm not that worried about the pitching staff yet. All right, these guys have proven what they are capable of, just like Dusty Baker has proven what he is capable of. Between the roster and the management, I don't know how you could possibly be freaking out yet. You just saw the result of basically the same ball club minus a few key pieces, which we will get to. I don't understand. Moving on to another dark spot. Our new first baseman, Jose Abreu. He's been a little bit shaky to start the season so far, all right? There have been weird defensive lapses, missed ground balls, some absolutely piss poor at bats with runners in scoring position, and there's no arguing that. It's been rough for him. He's leading the team in strikeouts with 19, but he's tied with Yordan Alvarez and Jeremy Pena in that spot, which is pretty good company. It's just a couple of guys that you don't mind being mentioned in the same breath as, at least. Abreu's hitting .253, which is still, no, it's not great, but it's better than Alex Bregman, David Hensley, Jeremy Pena, Jake Myers, and some other obvious names that you would expect to be on that list. Look, he's on a new team, in a new city, and he's got really high expectations, filling some really big shoes in the form of Yuli Gurriel. So I'm not exactly freaking out about him yet either. It's early. Give the man time. He doesn't look like a bust, which I feel like a lot of you are looking to say. He's just that we're not there. He went on a nice little hitting streak there for, 8 games or something like that? He's done okay. The defensive errors, those are tough to watch. You don't like to see those. Just over the course of what I call this most recent Astros dynasty. Defensively, we have always been so solid. It has never really been a thing we had to worry about. Pitching on occasion, we've had to worry about. The offense going to sleep on occasion, we've had to worry about. But defensively on the whole, we've always been solid. So to see our first baseman, who's one of the anchors of the, defense, obviously, got to have the guy at first base catching the fucking ball. It's a little concerning. It's been probably the one thing that made me go, shit. But we'll see. It's too early. All right? Chas McCormick being injured, that sucks. That's a dark spot. And that whole weird who should be starting in center field debacle between him and Jake Myers, that has been annoying, to be sure. Very annoying. And look, this is one of the places that even I on Twitter was like, what the fuck is Dusty doing? Put Chaz out there. But that's largely due to what I saw from Chaz in the postseason last year, including his historic, unforgettable catch that perhaps saved the World Series. So it's like, and then seeing some offense from him that, frankly, I don't even think we saw last year. Hitting really, really well. Stealing bases. Chaz has been awesome. I love doing the Chaz chomp. So, and frankly, Jake Myers has always been kind of like, what are we doing here? He'll make a good defensive play every once in a while or whatever, but it's like, I just didn't seem that difficult for me. Pick Chaz over Jake, especially given Chaz's start this season. So I participated in that. I stooped down into the gutter with you people and argued about that for no reason on Twitter. But, he'll get healthy. He'll be back. And until then, we see what Jake Myers can do. And again, he's made some good defensive plays out there in the field. He hit a home run the other day. That was nice. 2-run shot. Good stuff. Overall, he's not hitting great. I still don't like his face. Something about him. He just generally doesn't strike me as the gamer that Chaz does. And he doesn't have a cool signature chomp that I can do every time he does something cool. So that's a big knock against him, frankly, Jake Myers. So they must be seeing something from Jake in practice that makes them think this guy is worth continuing to give as many opportunities as possible. I don't really know. But again, I have to default to the fact that I trust Dusty Baker. I trust our front office to make the best decisions possible for the ball club. Because historically, they've earned that trust. Have they not? Have they not? We just won the World Series. So again, I'm able to talk myself into you know what? It's okay. So to move on to bright spots. Jose Altuve's replacement at second base, Mauricio Dubon. Holy shit. Where did that guy come from? He's been a fucking hitting machine. Dubon is leading the team with a .328 batting average, which frankly, I don't think anybody saw that coming. He's been solid defensively. Not sure he's made an error yet. I don't think anybody can argue that they've absolutely loved what we've seen from Dubon so far. Incredible job. You could not ask for more in terms of filling in for a dude nobody thought could be adequately replaced in Jose Altuve. I'm interested to see. Altuve's got a, X-ray coming up on his thumb so they can evaluate his healing so far. Apparently, they're very stoked on how quickly he has healed up from this thumb being broken. Could be back sooner than they thought he would. And that will put Dubon in a position where he's no longer necessary. Now, we can obviously plug him in when Altuve needs an off day or whatever, but like, considering the dude is literally the best hitter on the team currently, I don't know how we just like bench him. I'm not saying like he should play in front of Altuve. I'm not insane. We need Jose back. We need him in the field. We need him as our leadoff hitter. But Mauricio certainly has a place somewhere in the lineup. I don't know what you do with him, but he's been too good to just shelve and move on from. All right. Other bright spots: Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. Not shocking that they've been bright spots. If there were two guys that you had to pick and say, God, I hope they are bright spots, it would be these two dudes. They got 21 and 14 RBIs respectively. Yordan with 21, Kyle with 14, leading the team, both of them, number 1 and number 2 in RBIs in that category. 4 home runs apiece, which has been a little bit underwhelming over the last few games. They started off hot, Yordan. He's kind of cooled off. Same thing with Kyle. Yordan is striking out a lot, like I said, but overall he's been the reliably clutch hitter that we need him to be, so no complaints. Yordan and Kyle, both bright spots. Now, obviously, we have Yordan. We've got Alvarez locked down for several more years. Kyle Tucker lost arbitration this offseason. He's going to want an extension at some point. He obviously already does. He wants to be paid more money. We need to figure out something. Dana Brown needs to get on that. That needs to be a thing that happens. Maybe it's not a thing that happens during the regular season, but I think they need to like at least be, figuring out the game plan there, I would hope, right? I feel like I'm stating the obvious here, but like Kyle Tucker is not a dude we can just let walk away. I'm hoping that him and his agent are not doing the whole like, we want a generational contract, 10 years, $300 million thing, because, Jim Crane doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. It's not a thing that we do as a franchise. We never have, and I doubt that we will for Kyle if we didn't for the other guys that we haven't done it for. So I don't want to see him go. I love watching Kyle Tucker play. Seeing his development over the past few years has been awesome. And he has continued to prove that he is also one of the best hitters in baseball, along with being a Gold Glove winner last season. That catch he made to end the World Series and secure our second championship, he has made that exact same catch in foul territory like 5 times already this season. And every time he does it, I have like a deja vu flashback that is boner inducing. And I want that to continue to be a thing for me for as long as Kyle Tucker plays baseball. So yeah, through 18 games, to quote Zero, it ain't all good, but shit, it ain't all bad though either. Give this team time. They usually need it. And try to keep your head screwed on straight as a fan through at least the end of April. Please. Because you make us look like a bunch of fair-weather fuckboys when you start crying like a goddamn baby. We're not even 25 games into the 162-game season. Please. Pull yourself together, man. Today's episode is brought to you by Outlier, the smartest and most efficient way to bet on sports. Browse, analyze, and place picks on any of the major sports books. That's right, all of FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, and BetMGM's available bets, all in one app. Outlier's Prop Finder allows you to research player props like the pros do, but in a fraction of the time. Analyze historic hit rates, injuries, insights, matchup details, line movement, public money, and more at a glance. If you're a sports bettor, Outlier gives you all the information you need to make sure you are picking properly. And as a sports bettor myself, I fucking love this app. You can put all your bets into the app and track them in the My Picks section. You see the percentage of bets placed on each side of every line, so you can see where the public money is, decide if you want to fade, get all the information your little betting heart could possibly desire, and so much more. The ease of throwing a dart, the confidence of a well-researched decision, that's the balance you want, baby. Start your free 7-day trial today. 7 days for free and start placing smarter bets. Just go to outlier.bet/bangingthecan to start your free 7-day trial. That's OUTLIER, outlier.bet, outlier.bet/bangingthecan to start your free 7-day trial today. All right, Texans fans, the NFL draft is approaching with the first round beginning next Thursday, April 27th, 2023, and nobody has a fucking clue what the Texans are going to do with the number 2 pick. Will they trade the pick if the Panthers take Bryce Young at number 1, which has been the most recent buzz on the interwebs, or will they take CJ Stroud? Or will Nick Caserio strip naked, dump gasoline over his head, and light himself on fire? Nobody fucking knows. Nobody knows. And frankly, it's not worth the stress of trying to decipher and figure it out. So we'll all just have to tune in next Thursday and watch to see what happens. It's been a while since I was excited for a Texans draft. For the NFL draft, period. It's been a few years since I was really stoked. Seeing what DeMeco Ryans is going to do, I am excited for. Seeing what Nick Caserio will do, I'm excited for. I want to see how this next era of Texans football begins. We didn't get the number 1 pick like we had hoped, like we deserved, like we earned. Thanks to Lovie Smith. Thanks to Brandon Cooks. Thanks to Davis Mills. God damn it. But, we've got number 2. Who knows? You know? Who knows? We've been so bad for so long that this doesn't even feel like a high-stakes situation to me as a fan anymore. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited, but it doesn't feel high stakes, which is really saying something considering we have the number 2 pick. Like, if they blow it, I'll have fun further eviscerating the team on social media and on this podcast. But if they crush it, I'll be stoked that maybe DeMeco Ryans will have some actual talent to play with next season. But if I have to spend one more Sunday, even one more game, watching Davis the Neck Mills as our starting quarterback, I will not. I will not do it. For my mental health, I cannot responsibly subject myself any further to that level of mediocrity. Sometimes, other times, it's extreme shittiness. So, draft next Thursday, we'll see how it goes. Moving on to the Rockets, who, not surprisingly, our Houston Rockets fired tanking specialist Stephen Silas, or Silas. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't have to worry about pronouncing his name correctly. Stephen is gone. And honestly, I feel a little bit bad for the dude. He came into a situation that was not what he expected when James Harden departed, was basically put in charge of making sure we fucking suck for 3 years, and now he's gone. And ironically, Harden might come back next season, depending on what happens with James and the Philadelphia 76ers during this postseason and offseason. So, the Rockets have begun the search for their next head coach. Right after we watched the Texans do it this past football offseason, now we're watching the Rockets do it this basketball offseason. Very wide pool of candidates so far, apparently being considered, including Frank Vogel, Ime Udoka, Nick Nurse, Scott Brooks, and more. And there isn't like a certain candidate that I am currently dead set on acquiring, because really, honestly, I don't know what kind of coach we need to helm this team, as I have no fucking clue what this team will look like next season. It really depends on several factors, like if James Harden really does come home, if we get lucky with our 14% chance to land the number 1 pick and pull Wembanyama, and if we trade any of the current young core. Like, all of those things matter when you're determining what kind of coach you're looking for. And obviously, things did not pan out the way we wanted with Steven. So it is a huge decision, to be sure. It's just not one that I particularly feel like my basketball knowledge is good for judging. Like, I've never watched a rebuild like this before with my basketball team. I've never been this invested in a full-blown rebuild. So really, I'm just hoping shit goes well, because like everybody else, I'm sick and tired of watching losing basketball. When it comes to my ranking of Houston's professional sports teams historically over the course of my 35 years, the one I have been most obsessed with the most consistently it's been the Houston Rockets, without a doubt. So the past few years have been extremely painful for me from that sense. I love the Astros. Obviously, they're the most fun team to watch in terms of recency bias. They've been the best by far. That's not saying a whole hell of a lot, and at the same time it is, because they've won 2 championships in the past 6 years. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot we have to wait to see in terms of the Rockets and what they do with their head coaching search and what happens with the draft. But we did beat the Spurs in a coin flip to ensure we can fall no lower than the number 6 spot in the draft, which still, like, just saying that out loud scares the shit out of me. The fact that we could pick number 6 is horrifying. And the Spurs, because of this coin flip, they can fall no lower than 7. So that was the coin flip was a tiebreaker to determine which one of us would be the 6, would have 6 as our ceiling or 7 as our ceiling. So now all we can do is pray for Victor. And I expect all of you to act accordingly. Shout out to Apollo Media and their co-founder Dez for hooking me up with a bunch of merch from the Apollo store. I'm rocking the gold H-Town versus everyone today, which you can grab at Apollo, H-O-U, Apollo Hue store. That's APOLLOHOU.store to check out all their merch, which you've 100% seen on, not only Houston athletes, most recently Jose Altuve, but on fans at the games all the time, even if you don't realize it. Go to ApolloHue.store. I appreciate the love, Apollo. And that will do it for today's show. But remember, every episode of Banging the Can is available on youtube.com/@bangingthecan. I appreciate all of you who are subscribed there. If you would rather watch than just listen, go to youtube.com/@bangingthecan. It means a lot. On that note, please share the most unapologetic Houston sports show in existence with your friends and family. Support our sponsors. Brand new sponsor this week, Outlier. Go to outlier.bet/bangingthecan to start your free 7-day trial if you are a sports bettor. I could not more highly recommend Outlier. It is awesome. I've been using it for the past couple weeks. Check out my media startup, Bolin Media, at bolinmedia.com. My comedy show, The Ross Bolin Podcast, available wherever you consume Banging the Can. If you're watching Succession on HBO, the final season of Succession, we are covering that on Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. It's the name of our TV and film podcast here. Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. If you're watching Succession and want a companion podcast to guide you through the chaos of this final season, follow our show on TikTok at Banging the Can, as well as Twitter and Instagram at Banging the Can. I am Ross Bolin. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at WRBolin, and I will be back soon. I know this was a long gap between episodes. I kept saying, all right, after this series, I'm going to do a podcast to talk about the Astros and what's happened so far. All right, after this series, I'm going to do it. After this series, I'm going to do it. And I just kept pushing it back because, I've got a newborn at home and a lot going on at work. And I wanted to make sure there were enough talking points. Plus, it's just been the slow start, man. It's just another slow start. It's kind of our thing at this point. So I wanted to wait till the panic got to a fever pitch so I could come in and try to squash it. So hopefully you people chill out. You got to give it at least through April before you start the bitching and the moaning. But I'll be back soon. Until next time, H-Town, stay down.